Thank you, everyone. We begin. Oh, 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 oh. Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswati Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Samastachana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam. Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Om Sahana Vavatu. Sahanau Bhunaktu. Sahaviryam Karvavahai. तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः गुरुरादिर्नादिश्च गुरुः परमदैवतम् गुरो परतरं नास्ति तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः न गुरोरधिकं तत्त्वं न गुरोरधिकं तपः तत्त्वज्ञानात् परं नास्ति तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः ॐ हरिः ॐ morning. We are on mantra number 12. 12 is a reflective mantra because the teacher has been taking us through a tour of the Upanishads. Sort of like, actually, when you go on a world tour, you tend to pick the best cities, in the best countries, in the best locations, because time is limited, but you still want to capture the essence of the best. So what Guruji has done here in Upanishad Vidyasahar is taking us through this tour of all the Upanishads by choosing the best amongst all of them, so it increases our clarity. So mantra number 12 is it's a checkpoint. We've done 11. We've done everything that we need to know. Now the teacher asks the student, have you understood? The first time he's asked and paused and asked the student, have you understood? And this is a very famous mantra from the Keno Upanishad. Keno Upanishad is Keno, it's actually Kena Upanishad. When A and U meet, it becomes an O, so it's Keno Upanishad. Kena Upanishad is from the Samaveda. I don't know if anyone here has done it, but we've done this text in the past, few years back. It's a beautiful text. It begins with Keneshitam Patati Preshitam Manaha. And the theme of this, usually the first word of the mantra becomes the name of the Upanishad. So it begins with Kena. So hence the name Kena Upanishad. Keneshitam Patati Preshitam Manaha. Willed by whom, ordered by whom, directed by whom, how is it that I'm able to see, smell, hear, taste, touch, feel, think? Kena Upanishad is the most direct Upanishad where it begins straight on. There's no faffing about. Straight on, it asks, willed by whom am I able to speak? Am I able to smell? Am I able to think? And in fact, it's said Shankaracharya has written comment bhashyas on, I think, the first 10. That's why they're called. There we have 10 major Upanishads. But on Kena Upanishad, he has written 2 bhashyas. And the bhashyas are known as the Padma Bhashya and the Vakya Bhashya. Who knows what Padma means and what Vakya means? Anyone? Where we heard this?
Words and sentences, I thought.
Sorry?
Pada is word, isn't it? So
Pada
is word, a
yes,
word.
correct.
Vakya is a sentence. So did he write the meaning of each word and then each sentence?
Perfect. That's exactly right. Pada means word. So Pada Bhasha is where he takes each word and he breaks it down. And Vakya is he takes the sentence and gives you the essence of that in a Bhasha. The more popular one, at least in Chinmaya Mission, is the Pada Bhasha. Where else have we heard this word? Pada Vakya. Krishna is not here, is she, Roshni? She sings that bhajan.
She's on a call. Yeah.
Pada Vakya. It's a bhajan. I'll leave you guys to experiment that. Investigate and come back next week. Where have you heard Pada Vakya? It's a very famous bhajan. So Shankara has written two commentaries on the Kena Upanishad, Pada Bhashya and Vakya Bhashya. That's how important this Kena Upanishad is. As I said, we did this a few years ago. So now the reflection question here is he asked the student in Kena Upanishad, have you understood so far what I've said? After 11 mantras is the 12th. And the student says, yes, I've understood. Now, in class, when the teacher asks you in math or physics or chemistry, have you understood? And you put up your hand as a kid and say, yes, the teacher says, shabash, well done, smart boy, smart girl. And we give you a prize or toffee or something, or flower. So the student was waiting for praise. And then the teacher said, you have not understood anything. Imagine how deflated the student would have been after halfway through Kena Upanishad, the teacher asked him, have you understood? He said, yes. And he said, you have not understood anything. Absolutely deflated. The teacher told him, go back and think. So he went back, reflected deeply, and came back. And the teacher asked him again, have you understood? And the answer he gave is this mantra in mantra number 12 from the Kena Upanishad. It is one of the most famous mantras, not just in Kena Upanishad, but amongst all Upanishads. There are a few mantras which stand out. This is one of them. Now, this will take some understanding. It won't come easy. So let's go slow. So the mantra begins. Naham manye suvedeti, no na vedeti vedacha, yo nastat veda tat veda, no na vedeti vedacha. Naham, na aham, manye, su vedeti, su, broken up, vedeti. No, na vedeti, veda cha. Yo naha tad veda, no na vedeti veda cha. Okay, we'll do Pada translation. Naham manye suvedeti. So he's saying, oh Guru, naham, na aham. I do not think that I know this Brahman or Atman suvedeti. Su is good, very well. I do not think that I know this Brahman very well. Na aham manye. Think, I don't think. So Guru says, so you still don't know? And he says, no. That does not mean that I don't know. Naham manye suvedeti. No, na vedeti. No, na vedeti. That does not mean that I don't know. Vedacha. But I also know it. No, na vedeti vedacha. Naham manye suvedeti. I don't think I know this Brahman very well. That does not mean that I don't know it. Vedacha, but I know it. Cha in the Bhashya means the opposite of I don't know. I also know it. Okay, so I hope that's crystal clear to everybody. And then he continues, Yo Nastad. Nastad, you break it up as Yo Naha Tadveda. Yo Naha Tadveda. Naha means all my classmates, all the brahmacharis who are studying with me. Yah, anyone amongst all my brahmacharis. So he's now become the spokesman for his class. Yah Naha Naha. Amongst all my students of brahmacharis, Yah, anyone that is us. Amongst all the vidyarthis here who are of mediocre intelligence, is the implication. The one who understands what I am saying, Tadveda, yo na Tadveda, Tadveda, who understand what I am saying, they get it. No na vedeti vedacha. But those who don't understand it the way I am saying it, do not get it. Say what? No na vedeti vedacha. Naham manye svedeti, no na vedeti vedacha, yo nastat tat veda, no na vedeti vedacha. Now, if we think of the principle of knowing, when we know something as an object, which is outside, which is something different from me. About that object, I may say, I don't know it. I know it vaguely, or I know it very well. Three possibilities. Of course, I know it vaguely has different degrees of knowing. I know it well, not so well. I know it very well. I know it vaguely. So different degrees of objectification happens. But the one who knows is different from the object known. The one who knows is the so-called knower, which in technical terms is known as the jnata. So there is the jnata, there is the object to be known, which is the jnayam, and there is the knowing, which is jnanam. So our whole life is spent in knowing objects. As jnatas, we become professional jnanis with reference to niyams. Just reflect on that. Guruji gives a very interesting example in the book. Page 75. Can someone read that at the bottom? Anyone? Any volunteers?
I'll do it.
Yeah.
Reflections on knowing. Suresh was asked if he knew Ganesh, Dinesh, Nimish, Sarvesh, and Naresh. He replied, I don't know Ganesh at all. I know Dinesh vaguely. I have only heard of Nimish. I know Sarvesh quite well. And Naresh and me are best friends, and I know him very well. When asked, do you know yourself? What can he say? Knowing of oneself is different from knowing a thing or person outside. I cannot say I don't know myself at all, because I do. I cannot deny my own existence, ever. I cannot say I know myself because I have heard about myself from others. I know myself directly from within, even if no one else does. I cannot say I know myself vaguely, quite well, or very well. Because who is the I that will know the I?
So there's pratyaksha jnana, what I can know through my senses. And that's everything we do in the world: see, smell, hear, taste, taste. Then there's paroksha jnana, which is I can't directly perceive, but someone told me about it. There's bombing happening in Tehran. I cannot see it. The journalist told me. Actually, most of our information, probably 70-80%, is gathered from paroksha jnana. Somebody told me. Direct experience, how much can I have? I don't know Australia. I don't know half the world. I don't know 3/4 of the world, but I've heard about it. Then there is aparoksha jnana, which is neither pratyaksha nor paroksha, which is that which is about knowledge of the self. There's a book, text, aparoksha, aparoksha anubhuti, which I think Roshni, you and I did with Guruji. So what is he saying here? So Suresh was asked, I know Ganesh, Dinesh. I know them all well. I don't know. I know vaguely, and then different degrees of vaguely, and then I know. Then someone asks, do you know? Someone asks me, do you know Suresh? I've just answered, I know Ganesh, Dinesh, Sarvesh in different degrees. Do you know Suresh? Now, the only way I know to know is through pratyaksha. So I know myself because I can see, smell, hear, taste, teach myself. But paroksha, I don't ask somebody, do you know Suresh, to introduce that myself to me. So paroksha doesn't apply. And pratyaksha, even though I can see myself, I know that this is not me. Because I see the changes happening in my life from childhood to today. I see the changes in my mind. I see the changes in my ideas. So which one am I? Was I the mind when I was 18 or when I was 12? Was it my body when I was born, or is it my body today? Who exactly am I? So I know that pratyaksha doesn't answer who Suresh is. Paroksha doesn't make any sense. I don't go to Sandeep and say, who is Suresh? What's left is aparoksha. I know that I am not this, but I don't know myself. So when Guruji says an unexamined life is not worth living, and we just lapped it up, what does he really mean? So we are born, we spent our entire lives knowing things without even knowing who I am. Can there be a sadder exhibition of one's life than that? Cradle to grave, we spend our times knowing things without knowing who I am, the very purpose of my birth. We did in, which verse was that? One of the earlier mantras. Satyam Jnanamanantam Brahma, Yo Veda Nihitam Guhayam Parame Vyoman. This Brahman is seated in my own heart. So I know intellectually there's a Brahman seated in my heart. And the next verse also said, Divyo Hyamurta Purusha Sabahya Bhyantara Hajaha Aprano Ammanaha Shubraha Yaksharat Parataparaha is the Atman. And then the third verse says, the Atman is the Brahman which is seated in my own heart. That's the subject, that's the self, that's who I am. But do I know that? The student is saying, if I said I know that, I'm objectifying that. If I objectify it, then I don't know it. Because if you're Jnana Swarup, if you are the Jnata, you cannot objectify yourself and say it is the Jnayam. Because Jnana Swarup is what you are. So I cannot say I know it as an object. Therefore, he says, I don't think I know this Atma very well. But that does not mean I don't know it. Because he knows there's something separate from him, which he knows, but not as an object. Vedacha, but I know it. So he knows it as the subject, not as the object. Hence the title of this chapter, Knowing Without Knowing. So he does not know the Atma as an object separate from him. He knows it as his own self, as the subject. And that cannot be expressed in language. Any questions?
Yeah, I do actually, please.
Sure.
Knowing pratyaksha and knowing aparoksha are both subject-object relationship, subject-object knowledge, if you like, right? There's
Aparoksha is
no, sorry, pratyaksha and paroksha.
correct.
Yeah. So there's a thing, and there's me, and I know that, right? And then the science of how that happens is whatever it happens, whether it's through eyes, ears, touch, etc. So there's no relevance in aparoksha jnana as long as I cannot, the aparoksha jnana cannot have any relevance in the world of duality at all. Correct?
Any relevance? I would rephrase that. What relevance does pratyaksha and paroksha have when aparoksha has not happened? Without knowing myself, knowing everything about everybody is useless information. And that's why this turns everything on the head. And that's why Guruji's words now keep coming back. An unexamined life is not worth living. Apne aap ko jano, he keeps saying. Apne aap ko jano. Apne man ko jano. Mera man kahan hai? Tanme mana shiva salkalpamastu.
Suresh, if I may add to that, actually, if I've understood Sandeep correctly, I think where he's headed is then to say that that's why the importance of this, when we then know ourselves, then we can understand what our scriptures are roaring, which is actually the word, you are, the knower is the known. The Jagat becomes mithya, that which I am objectifying through my senses. All this out there is nothing but consciousness. And that is how we then understand Brahman, not understand, but then we can have that experience. Brahman alone is. Everything else is mithya. There is no object. What science is just getting to, where they think matter exists separate from so-called spirit. We will, when we know ourselves as we truly are, only then can we begin to see that there is no duality, as Sandeep says. Okay, you put it, the way you put it was to say that aparoksha jnana has no relevance. Turn it around, what it actually means is you alone are. And therefore, we then understand the previous mantras correctly, where what you see is yourself all around. And then you see that oneness. Do you know what I'm...
Yeah, the other thing I think you misspoke. You said aparoksha jnana has no relevance. I think you
Yeah,
meant
I think, well, that's the way he put it. But I'm turning it around and I'm saying, yes, we have to first know ourselves as we truly are, which is what our attempt is here. And then we understand that these so-called objects that we are seeing around the outside, they are mithya. They are not. Brahman alone is. Sat eva chit and chit eva sat. Then not only makes we don't only understand it intellectually, but we experience that, and therefore everything is aparoksh. So it is not that it has no relevance. You actually see that alone is. It's an immediate knowledge because the knower alone is. Hence that Swarup, as you said, that I am Gyan Swarup. And actually that alone is, there is nothing else. Everything else is mithya. So that Advait really hits home. I mean, Vedanta is just so beautiful. Everything else just dissolves into irrelevance.
Yeah, thank you. You're both correct. In I did say it the wrong way. What I meant by aparoksha is not relevant is that actually, once you have known that self, then the other two are not relevant really. It's I should have said it that way because then even the knowing of these objects can only be understood as aparoksha, even though right now there's a seer, seen, experiencer, experienced type relationship. I think that's what falls away in with aparoksha gyan. But aparoksha gyan itself is it's the process of elimination. It's what's left when you remove the other two, if you like.
well put.
Can we just go back to the second half of what the student is saying, which is says that I know it as my own self. So is that a recognition that I know there's a part of me that's apprehending what's happening that's separate from these objects? Because then it says I know it as my own self, but I also do not know it. And then that's accepting that there is, I know that there is a part, there is me, but then I've also not come to experience it. Is that what that last part is?
No, he's saying I have experienced it. He's saying I've experienced it as my own self, which is why I cannot say it's known, and I cannot also say it's unknown. Because if I've experienced it as my own self, then everything that is known or unknown is with respect to objects. I know Nimesh, but I don't know Ganesh. Or I know Sarvesh somewhat. And even these degrees of knowing, even in objectification, is like saying I don't know the rope, but I see a snake, and that's bad. But now you know what? I don't see the rope, but I see a garland. So that's better. Well, maybe it's better than the snake, but it's still an illusion. So it's still degrees of knowing is still objectification and doesn't help. You have to see the rope for a rope. And when you see the rope as a rope, then there's no question of saying, I know the rope, because you are the rope. And therefore, whatever is projected on it is others' illusion. It's not yours. So he's saying, I know. That's why the teacher knew he's finally got it. Because he said, I know it, but I don't know it as an object. As an object, there's no question of me knowing or not knowing it. That's why it says knowing without knowing. So it's knowing the subject as opposed to our traditional relationship of knowing or not knowing objects. That's the idea. Naham manye suvedeti, nona vedeti vedacha. Yonas tadveda tadveda, nona vedeti vedacha. So the teacher caught him in Kenopanishad because when he says, do you know Brahman? He was thinking of Brahman as an object, and he says, I know Brahman. Now, this is classic. So we become ignorant, and then we become seekers, jignasus, and as seekers, we know there is something known as Brahman, something known as Atma. Atma is equal to Brahman, it's in the cave of my own heart, but it's still some concept of an object we form, and then we move from one concept of an object to another. And the third phase is de-objectifying the Atma and subjectifying it. And for that, it's a very dark cave. And even in the deepest recesses of our heart, no matter how much sadhana you do, there will be instances of despair. That after all these years of Vedanta, I still don't get it. And it happens with the most senior swamis. They go through dark periods of the night. And Guruji says, I think in the book also, the only anchors you will have in this wilderness of darkness is what Guruji calls 2G. Hold on to God and Guru. The only two anchors we have. So the concept of Shraddha is massive, because that Shraddha is the only anchor you have in these roaring, dark oceans of ignorance. And if you don't hold on to those, if you don't strengthen those anchors of faith in God and Guru, we will get lost in the wilderness even after 50 years of Vedanta. So Krishna is not just creating poetry when he says Shraddhavan labhate jnanam. So the epitaph on our grave should not say he was born ignorant, lived ignorant, and died ignorant. It really should be the epitaph of everybody. The rest is all noise. Born ignorant, tried to become knowledgeable, and at the end, we really don't know, but we think he's somewhere close, because no one will really know. But at least a life lived trying is better than just continuing in the wilderness. I finished early today because I'm going to go to another meeting by 10, but we have some time for questions.
I was going to say, Suresh, are we going to focus on this part of the verse saying where he says comprehended both as known and as unknown?
Which part is this?
If you look in the English translation, I do not think that I know it well, but not that I do not know. I know too. Then the next bit he says, whoever amongst us comprehends it both as the not known and as the known, he comprehends it.
Yeah. So when you comprehend it as the not known, then it means you have understood it as the subject, because the subject cannot be known. And as the known, well, you have known because you've become the knower. You've become Jnana Swarup itself. You become knowledge itself. And if you become knowledge, there's no question of knowing or not knowing. He's now beyond both the knower and the known. And he's the one who comprehends it. So he cannot say, I know it or I don't know it. I know it as the self is very different to everything that we understand as knowing, because in our language, knowing implies a subject-object relationship. So what he's saying is one who's got this aparokshanubhuti, anubhuti, experience of aparoksha jnana, of that knowledge of the self, he's beyond both the known and the not known. Nona vedeti vedacha. So I do not know it, and yet I know it. So the contradiction in paroksha jnana is a paroksha jnana. Because in Poroksha Jnana, I can say, I know Nimesh or I don't know Nimesh. What about Suresh? Well, there's no question of knowing or not knowing. It's me. I cannot say I know it. I cannot say I don't know it. It's me.
Also, the concept of not knowing is also a subject-object relationship.
Absolutely.
So I am knowledgeable of the fact that I do not know, if that makes sense.
When I say I know this bottle, yes. I don't know this bottle, I know that ignorance. I know my knowledge and I know my ignorance as well. I know I don't know anything about thermonuclear physics. I know that. So both the known and the unknown are still objects of knowledge. Ignorance is a thought, remember. And the ignorance, which is a thought, therefore, can only be removed by the thought of knowledge. Sleep, deep sleep, is a thought. Deep sleep is a vritti, it's a thought, which can only be removed by a thought of either dream or waking. And deep sleep is the greatest ignorance we have. The world ceases to exist, and even that is a thought. And that thought is what? I don't know. Dream is a thought. What is it? I think I'm X, Y, Z, A, B, C, dancing and all over the place. Waking is a thought. I am Suresh. That's the waking. All three are ignorance, different degrees of objectification. But this is a beautiful verse. Naham manye suvedeti, no navedeti vedacha. Yo nastat tadveda, no navedeti vedacha. From Kenopanishad. We will go back next.
Incredible. No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
It's incredible to think how much effort our scriptures have made then to be able to describe this, because there is, like there's nothing that can be used to describe it, and yet our teachers and scriptures have made so much effort.
I'm glad you said this, because in one of the commentaries in Kenopanishad, Guruji had said that these Vedic compositions, if you study them and look at the grammar, the poetry, the literature, the words, it is perfect. It cannot be a human composition, because humans are born with defects in either the speech or the writing, or because the instruments we have are defective. These are perfect. No one's ever said, oh, Kenopanishad, that mantra, I think there's a grammatical error. Never. And therefore, Vedanta apaurushaya. Paurusheya, human composition. Apaurushaya, it is divine composition. It's not a human composition. And that enough should stun us that what we are studying is the word of God, whoever that God is, himself. It's a divine composition. Written God knows when, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 BC. Yesterday, I think I put out a video which says that there's no question of before BC or AD. It's before Upanishad and after Upanishad. That's how ancient they are. So the take-home point is, what am I doing here? Do I know myself? That's the take-home point. What am I doing here? Do I know myself? The next verse we will do next week goes back to Mundaka Upanishad. You can see why Mundaka is Guruji's favorite. I think half of them are from Mundaka so far. And he says that is his favorite Upanishad. where the teacher actually blesses the student, because the blessings has to be, there are three aspects to learning. One is the reception. Two is the recollection. And what's the third? Reception, retention, and recollection, the three R's. So to receive, we all do. To retain is a big problem. To recollect, to have it ready when on demand, when needed, is an even bigger problem. So the blessings of the Guru next week will be so that the student becomes established in this knowledge that he has received, so that retention and recollection become second nature. And that happens through a process known as anusandhana, contemplation or meditation. Any thoughts? Neeraj, good to have you in person, live. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Pratyaksha, Paroksha, Aparoksha. And we've talked about how our usual ways of Pratyaksha and Paroksha jnana cannot help us in knowing oneself. You mentioned de-objectifying. I'm just trying to understand what you meant there. But by de-objectifying, what we're saying is that we're just moving from Pratyaksha, Paroksha to Aparoksha, right? But it's not a new process. It's not, sorry, not a new process, but it's not a new concept of a process that you're trying to get to, right?
De-objectifying means we tend to change our ideas of what Atman is. And in our mind, Atman is still something. It's something, either it's a picture, an idol, or whatever, and then we move from A to B to C, thinking each time we're evolving, which is why the example was given from rope to snake, now rope to garland, rope to bedsheet, but it's still an object. So drop the concept of Atman as an object, because Paroksha and Pratyaksha are very much needed, because we need that in order to study the scriptures to go to Aparoksha. You need Paroksha because that's something the Rishis have taught us. You need Pratyaksha because through my worldly experiences and actions, I'm able to purify the mind so that the Paroksha, which is given to me, becomes Aparoksha. The only thing worth objectifying is the Atman, by the way, because in the process, that objectification becomes subject. And that's where this, the Om mantra comes in. Akhanda Akar Vritti, where you objectify the self, and that becomes, the object drops and the self remains, which Upadeshar says very nicely.
This is why even how we set our goal is probably important, because we think of attaining self-realization. It's like something I'm going to get, but there isn't anything to get. There is no, even that's like seen as like something separate, an object.
Yeah, Ramana Rishi again. Ahamayam kuto bhavati chinvata. Who am I? Bhavati chinvata. Just think about that. When you think about that, ai patatyaham patati. Ai patatyaham. Aham patati falls. Ai, as I said, South Indian, ayo. It drops. Nija vicharanam. So on thinking and meditating and reflecting on who am I, that I, aham bhava, drops. And what's left? I, that's all a man of wisdom can say. Ayo, nothing else.
So is it once we recognize the illusion Maya, our journey inwards begins. And then once we are recognizing, or once we know what this Maya is, it just takes us deeper into the self-realization. Just add this to thought.
Academically, once we know Maya, we begin the journey. Subjectively, once we know Maya, the journey ends. Should we do the Gita chanting? Because I have to run in 15 minutes. Who wants to do it? People, new folks today? Ideally. Verse number 1, Neeraj. Verse number 2, Meena. Verse number 3, Smita. Verse number there are 2 Smitas. Verse number 3, Smita Vyas. Verse number 4, Smita Parmar. Verse number 5. Romy, you're very quiet.
I'll do it next week.
Okay. Verse number 5, anyone? Rajesh. Wonderful. Let's go.
उद्धरेतात्मनात्मानं नात्मनम् अवसादयेत् आत्मैव हमते बन्धुः आत्मैव रिपुरात्मनः
कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन या कर्मफलहेतुर्भुः माते अकर्मणि
Yat karoshi yadas nasi yat jahosi tadasi yat tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurusva madharpanam.
You're on mute, Smita. Smita Parmar.
Sorry. अनन्याश्चिन्तयन्तो मा ये जनाः पर्युपासते तेषां नित्यभियुक्तानां योगक्षेमं वहाम्यहम्
सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज अहं त्वा सर्वपापेभ्यः मोक्षयिष्यामि मा शुचः.
Wonderful. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you all very much. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Hariom.